ADOS and our allies. You know who it is, Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for dimmed down ballot strategy, protest strategy this election cycle, and just basically telling you how I see things, family. File on in, file on in, file on in. Thank you so much for tuning in to the live. I hope your day was awesome, just like you. And I'm glad you're going to join me today for more of the ADOS hot topics and to delve into our next couple of presidents, including Reconstruction's Abe Lincoln today. Yes, yes, yes. You know, my daughter was watching the classic Set It Off on Netflix today. And I thought, prior to the show, let me revisit it. It's been a while since I watched that show. And I was just reminded of why I'm involved in this movement. Why all of us, all throughout the country, in all the major city-states throughout the country are in this movement, fighting for ADOS reparations and a Black agenda. I don't know if you guys recall that movie, but it was powerfully telling about the egregious racial wealth gap that we're currently undergoing as American descendants of chattel slavery in this country. Remember Vivica Fox's character? She was a banker. When one of her neighborhood homeboys came in and, robbed the bank with his fellows hood rats, came up in her workplace, and then she got fired because she knew the brother who came in there and was ultimately killed for robbing the bank, right? But she got terminated. And so now, after 2 years of being a very prompt, business savvy banker, trying to rise up out of the hood that she came from, now she's terminated just from knowing the fella from the hood, from the projects, as she called it. So just like that, her circumstances change because we are so far on the bottom when it comes to income, and we have no wealth. I don't know what folks are talking about 2053. ADOS has no wealth right now, especially after COVID. But in a blink of an incident that she had no party to, white folks were able to just pull the rug out from under her banker position. I don't know if you remember Jada Pinkett's character. Jada Pinkett and her brother Stevie lost their parents in an automobile accident. And he lied to her, told her that he had been accepted into UCLA and not on scholarship. And so she literally goes out and prostitutes herself to raise the money for him to go to college. They get into an argument, not raise all the money, but, an advance from a guy who was interested in her, much older. She literally had to prostitute herself out just to get a down payment for her brother's college education at UCLA. And ultimately, she ends up tearing up the check because he admits to her that he lied about being accepted into UCLA. Well, he goes over to one of the bank robbers' apartments to get a bottle of champagne as, a high school graduation, headed to college gift. And this particular brother had been caught on tape with the initials AP for Acorn Projects in the back of his head. He had been caught on tape robbing that bank. And, Stevie thinks it's just a cool haircut. So the bank robber convinces his girlfriend to cut the AP into his head. And she's like, he's not even from the Acorn Projects. Why are you giving him those initials on the back of his head? He's like, go ahead and hook him up. She hooks him up, unbeknownst to him, when he's leaving with his bottle of champagne. All of SWAT is outside this unit because they have, pinpoint where this bank robber lives. So they're coming to apprehend him. So poor Stevie, he shows up, and he's walking out of the apartment when they spot him. They spot the AP. So they pull their weapons out, to accost him and tell him to get on the ground. Well, he's got this bulky bottle of champagne in his jacket. And so he can't really, lay flat to the ground as they're demanding of him. And he reaches to pull the bottle out to follow their orders. Someone screams he's got a gun, and they open fire and kill Jada Pinkett Smith's little brother. Her name was Stoney in the movie. They execute her brother. Okay. And then Kimberly Elise's character, I don't recall her name. I'm still in the middle of watching the film, but it was just very telling about ADOS life and what's happening to far too many of us, and how each and every one of us is one paycheck or one incident. What's up, Melanated Integrity? All right. Thank you so much for joining the live. Yes, indeed. I am absolutely one of the ADOS teachers and New Thought leaders. I appreciate that glowing compliment. I am amongst so much heavyweight in this movement, yourself included, Melanated Integrity. Thank you all for joining the live. But anywho, like I was saying about Stevie was assassinated outside of this hoodlum's home. And of course, it makes Stoney, his sister, what's up, Teresa Moses? Thank you so much for joining the live. It makes Jada Pinkett Smith's character named Stoney lose her entire mind because her brother has just been executed after they fought about him lying about being admitted into UCLA. I was on Kimberly Elise's character. I'm talking about Set It Off, guys, to set the stage for tonight's show. My 16-year-old revisited that classic, and I decided to watch it because it gives so many elements of how we're one paycheck away from being in a similar situation as Jada's character, Vivica's character, Queen Latifah's character, and Kimberly Elise's character. So Kimberly Elise, she's working for barely no money for a brother's janitorial service. He starts to tax her. Well, once he taxes her, instead of paying her under the table like she has asked so she can afford a sitter, she brings her son to an office work site. And within minutes, the son ingests some type of cleaning solution. They go to the hospital, rush the baby to the hospital. The doctor comes out, and thankfully the baby's going to be fine. But now social services has been called in because she had the baby at the workplace because she could not afford daycare. Okay? I mean, not daycare, night care. She couldn't afford a sitter because he taxed her instead of paying her under the table. That's how little she was making. All these girls living in the hood, trying to make it. No fault of their own. Institutional systemic racism is how they're there. Just like many of them today. Far too many. Let me remind you of the egregious racial wealth gap that 90% of ADOS, 90% of the blacks in this country, which is ADOS, share 700 billion. More than likely less than that now that COVID has hit and 40 million people have been laid off. I'm not sure what the percentage is of ADOS that's been laid off. But the bottom line is the wealth gap is egregious. White folks share 100 trillion household dollars. And the sad truth of the matter is that education doesn't close the egregious racial wealth gap. I share with you on prior shows that 44% of the nominal 6% of us that are left in LA because of job discrimination, it's rampant down here. Of that 6%, I'm not even sure how many are ADOS. I know that Africans and Caribbean immigrants are rolled up into that 6%. But anywho, U.S. blacks in LA. 44% of us hold degrees, yet we're only 6% of the private sector. Okay? So Kimberly Elise brings her baby to the work site. He gets into some solution, and now social services is there to take her son from her. You know, her son as in her lifeline. Her son, which gives her a reason to keep going. And all I do is sit and imagine myself in these situations. I've been in some situations. And unlike them, thankfully, I had people in my family that could afford to give me a loan. They couldn't even afford to give it to me. You understand what I'm telling you? They couldn't afford to give me the money. I had to pay it back. But what about people like the women in the Set It Off film that don't have people in their family to help bail them out? And a lot of ADOS are in denial. They're in denial about their real circumstances. And I try to keep it a buck over here for you guys. It's one of the reasons why I got involved with this movement. Because with my education and my breadth and depth of experience across industries, I get discriminated against in the hiring practices down here in LA. Now they're requiring that you know Spanish even to get an interview. And when you show up and you don't have the complexion for the protection, you're not getting that job. They're going to hire someone white or Hispanic over you. And you're blessed if you can get employment where they're not seeking to replace you down here. And as goes California, the rest of the country is soon to follow, especially if these Democrats take office. They are making a pathway for these immigrants, 11 million more Hispanics to cross that border. And they're so stupid, and their thumb is off the pulse of what even Hispanics want in this country. The Hispanics know, as do all immigrants know, that they are being weaponized against ADOS to suppress us and to starve us out. That's how they're being leveraged. And so Hispanics know when you bring in more of the poor, it's going to oppress and suppress those of us that are over here trying to climb up over the backs of the descendants of enslaved Africans in this country. They don't want any more of them. They want to cut it off. And the Democrats are so stupid and so disconnected from what's happening on the ground. Their minds are blown that Trump is in a dead heat with them down in Florida. I did that show yesterday to talk about the color of wealth in Miami. And this is great for capitalism because capitalism wants to pay us third world wages. While watching Set It Off, I just had to chuckle to myself because back in the Gap, when I was working for General Motors, I was earning $20 an hour at 15. And you've got these idiots in the Democratic Party a bazillion years later, okay, talking about a $15 minimum wage, like they're doing something for the people, and literally having, debates about that. And what they're doing in lieu, when they pay you the $15 an hour, they're cutting your hours back. So you still can't get ahead. It's still going to require you to work several gig jobs just to feed your family. And if you're out here working 2 and 3 jobs, who's raising your children? Especially when you're in the hood and close to 1 million Black men throughout the country are imprisoned. Who's raising your kids when you're working so hard just to make the rent? And so back to Set It Off before I get into tonight's reading. My mama, a virgin, it's on to our problem. I don't know what that means, but welcome to the live. Mercedes Boy 1, minimum wage should be $33 per hour to match inflation from 70 to now. Amen. We have over-earned and elevated money class status. I don't know what that means, melanated integrity. unpack that. Yeah, the movie Set It Off. Thank you for typing that in the chat. Yeah, but this is I want you guys to revisit that movie to really understand why you're in this movement. It will help shed light on why you're slinging bricks where you are, why you're showing up to the Senate hearings to demand state-based reparations, to demand affirmative action, to demand the right to vote for ex-felons. You're going to be reminded in this movie, it's got all of those cataclysmic things that just hit a family and take us off the grid because we're so close. We're many of us, far too many, are riding the line of poverty. And so back to what I was saying, suppressed wages only work for capitalism, of which both parties are working for. So them wanting to open the borders to more immigrants means they can suppress the wages while giving entitlements that are set aside for the immigrants to come in here and do to us what they used us to do post-slavery to suppress the wages of the poor white working class. We were used in the same way. Now they're weaponizing immigration against us. We're going to visit that in one of my book reads. I don't even have the book out here, but I'll be sure to paste it in the comments before the show concludes, where it talks about our migration from the South to the West, the Midwest, the North, and the East, and how we were used. They literally came South to pay us to come to all these different spaces to suppress the wages on the white, poor working class. In the same way, they're now weaponizing immigration against us, except they enriched the immigrants in a way that they denied and deprived ADOS. They took away the 40 acres and a mule and pillaged Freedmen's Bureau Bank. So Kimberly Elise lost her son, back to the Set It Off movie. She lost her son to the system because her capacity to care for him came into question after she took him to her workplace because her Black employer was taxing her instead of paying her under the table. And so when the social worker got to the hospital after being called from him ingesting poison on her job where he should not have been, now they take the only thing that matters to her, her son. And so it sets this climate, right, for these ladies to start thinking on what can we do to get up and out of our circumstances. And it's so bizarre because the very first time they successfully robbed the bank, let's say they took 12,000 or had a score of 12,000. The bank ripped off the insurance company by claiming 90,000 had been stolen. You know, as you get educated and you go back to some of these old school films like Set It Off, you can see the puckery all throughout and how we got here, tethered to the bottom, and are now in the fight of our lives to prevent from becoming the permanent underclass in the country our ancestors built with their lives. And you've got ADOS, the lineage. Usually it's the ones that are boule, the bougie ones who have been bought and paid to keep us tethered to the bottom, that are speaking out against our reparations fight. It takes some unmitigated gall. What the movement has got to fight through just to demand what we are owed. You got boule and the bougies who are satisfied with their wealth position. They've got what it takes to educate their children. They've got the nice homes in the white communities where they don't have to run the risk of, being executed by the race soldiers. They live amongst the race soldiers, but even they have to go to the police station to give pictures of their children and pictures of themselves in case they get froggy in the better sections of town that you live in, oh, by the way. But because you don't have the complexion for the protection you can be easily taken out living amongst the white supremacists. I shared in my feed, a brother was jogging. Next thing you know, whoop, whoop, in the white neighborhood. Here comes the police. You fit the description of a black man with a beard in a white shirt and black shorts. And he lived in the community. They handcuffed him until he could be cleared. So what you have to understand is this. If we don't get that reparations and a black agenda in exchange for our vote, this election cycle, it won't be long before the mayhem visits your front porch. If for no other reason than to keep you and your family safe, you want black folks to get paid what they are owed in the form of reparations in the trillions over multi-generations, just so you can stay safe in your home. Because that's where it's moving to next. You can be in your own community, and because you're black, you can fit the description. These bullets don't know any pedigree. Okay? And this is why it's imperative that ADOS, the lineage, wake up and understand neither party has your interest at heart. And you have been bailing out white folks for a bazillion years, about 60 years now. And we are on the bottom. $200 liquid in LA to Kamala's people's $245,000 liquid. $8 liquid in Boston to Caribbean immigrants, $12,000 liquid. African immigrants in LA, $60,000 liquid. In Miami, $11 liquid. This is what the lesser of evil two-step shuffle all the way to our peril has garnered us in the country that our ancestors built with their lives. It's working for the billionaire class, the oligarchs, the neoliberals. It's working for them, and it's working for the black folks that look like us, even many of which are ADOS, who are comfortably collecting their checks while our people die from COVID and while they're executed by the race soldiers in the community because they cannot afford to get out. Someone stupidly asked me, why don't you guys leave? Leave and go where? With what? If you're 200 liquid in LA, where are you going? $8 liquid in Boston, where are you going? $11 liquid in Miami, where are you going? So if we don't start to weaponize the only commodity we have left, which is our black vote, it's going to be game over. You're going to be replaced by immigrants who may get suppressed wages, but they also get a bunch of entitlements that were meant to make you whole upon your emancipation. Affirmative action, and the reason why there's none left for us is because white women are benefited by affirmative action. Second to that is the immigrant class. Third to that is LGBTQ. And if some of us can be in, some type of circumference to, catch a few driplets of it, good for you. I shared on my wall today about how egregious the racial wealth gap is and how we're 44% degree down here and 6% of the private sector. And I shared that we don't have time for corporate down here in LA to no longer be racist. Nobody has time to do 100 interviews. Can't even get an interview if you don't know Spanish for many private sector positions. That's another way to discriminate against you in your own country. So the bills are due every month. And that's why everybody needs to be in this fight for reparations. That's why everyone needs to protest vote until they deliver it. Damn a boycott. ADOS don't have no money to go shopping. Not sharing less than 700 billion while white folks luxuriate on 100 trillion. What they buying? That's of any significance. They're trying to keep the roofs over their head. And so we need all hands on deck. This strategy is not about the Green Party winning. It's so your vote will count. I've had a show where Tansy Flakes came on with the data. Some of these states don't allow for you to write in ADOS. Your entire ballot can get thrown out. If that happens, that hurts ADOS, whom 42% rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. So you can't afford, you don't even have the luxury of writing in ADOS. We've got to deliver a Democratic Congress. If Trump wins, let their asses hug it out for the next 4 years while we in the movement continue to gain momentum from people joining the movement and helping us in this fight. Right now, we're working on fixing HR 40. If the Democrats get in, HR 40 as it stands means you might get a $20 check. So when you see the campaign rolling out, please get on board that campaign. Because Sheila Jackson Lee is not ADOS. Maybe one of her parents is. But she's allowed NARC and COBRA to co-opt our HR 40 study for our repair to include everyone. Not everyone did the heinous chattel slavery that our ancestors were subjected to. They've got their claims over in the Caribbean and in Africa. Africa needs to take their issues up with their colonizers, as does the Caribbean, who have CARICOM. So it's not right that Sheila Jackson Lee allowed NARC and COBRA to crowbar their way into the reparations that are owed to ADOS, specifically and exclusively. So we need more time. And we need for the revolution to get up off these social media spaces and get to the polls early. Don't trust the mail. Okay, so the first part to that is we're asking for the Green Party for you to write in the Green Party or leave it blank. Don't trust none of these Board of Elections when it comes to the way of the road. Don't trust any of them. It could be right in today and, all of a sudden your ballots still get thrown out. Also, don't mail your ballot. Find your nearest polling station where you can drive by your ballot in your community. Don't trust the mail right now. We need every vote to count. We got to protect our people who rely on government assistance by no fault of their own. And like I said, the second part to that is if Trump wins and we deliver a Democratic Congress, they get to hug it out and we can gridlock government for the next 4 years. Nothing can get done. And that's the revolution that everybody needs to participate in. We are at DEFCON 4 and the stakes are extremely high. It is time to set it off this election cycle. We won't get another one. Hispanics are 56 million in this country to our 35 million. Another 11 million makes them 67 million as we continue to get executed and die from COVID. So with that said, family, that's Angela Nirvana. That's the portion of the show Angela Nirvana presents, the way I see it, in the ADOS Hot Topics. It's kind of compacted all into one thing. So I want to get into the read so I can get you out of here. I want to read your comments before I close out the show. So let me read about these next two presidents. More of the same, but you guys need to understand the history. You have to understand and get through your head there has never been a president that's been pro-ADOS. Never. They've all wished to continue our enslavement, which they have by way of the laws. They all call us niggers, okay, by way of the legislation that they pass and the lack of enforcement for any good policies that could protect the interests of ADOS. They're doing everything they can in their power to extinct us on both sides. We don't expect anything from the Republicans. This fight is with the Democrats. That is who owes us, because that is who we, by and large, vote for as a bloc. So I'm going to read you more of the same, and I'll be commenting in between. Please put your comments and your questions. The feed is choppy. Oh, my goodness. I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm clear on this end. Ooh. Okay, try logging out and coming back in, a reparationist. Thank you for joining the live, all of you. I'll give you love as I progress in the show, okay? I'll get to your comments and your questions. But I need you to understand how we got here. Because prayerfully, it will incite you to do the revolution with us. We need all hands on deck. You can't be more afraid of Trump than you are your people's own extinction. Our ancestors didn't die for you to be afraid of a Trump. They're all Trump. Some are just more polite about it. But you can share in the chat. Where's the reparations and Black agenda in exchange for our vote this election cycle? Or are they just giving us swag again? Kamala, I see pictures of her. Everybody's talking about her Timberlands, her Converse. You see how dumb they play us? James Buchanan, 1857 through 1861. Let me give you some context for both these presidents. Lincoln was 1861 to 1865. Okay, family. So I want to give you some context. Let me go back. Just give me a second. Okay. So, I'll get to the context for Abe Lincoln when I get to the Reconstruction portion. This is still pre-Civil War. Okay, so Buchanan was 1857 to 1861. So let's back up. At that time, the Dred Scott decision denies citizenship to all Black people. 1859, that was in 1857. 1859, John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, sets the stage for the Civil War. 1860, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts allow free Black people to vote. 1860, again, there are about 4.4 million Black people in the U.S., and 448,000 are considered freemen. These are the ones that they wanted to disappear back to Africa or the Caribbean. They wanted them out so that they would not encourage the others to fight for their freedom. Okay? So let's jump into this. James Buchanan was a Northerner, the only president from the state of Pennsylvania. Yet, like his predecessors, he wasn't at all interested in addressing the institution of slavery, stating in his inaugural address, quote, "Most happy will it be for the country when the public mind shall be diverted from this question to others of more pressing and practical importance," end quote, me speaking. Doesn't it sound like what Biden and Kamala is saying about our reparations and Black agenda? Most happy will it be for the country when the public mind shall be diverted from this question, from this demand, to others of more pressing and practical importance, like caping for the Republican vote and the immigrant vote, overdoing anything significant to close the egregious racial wealth gap by $100 trillion. Don't that sound like Biden and Kamala? In fact, he exemplified the term doughface, a reference to a Northerner with Southern sympathies. Isn't that Joe Biden? A liberal with, not even a liberal. He's a moderate centrist. He's really Republican in Democratic clothing with Republican sympathies. This is Strom Thurmond's boy, the author of the 94 crime bill. Segregationist Jim Crow Joe. That was forced on us. Bernie was whipping his tail 3 states straight until South Carolina, Jim Clyburn, and Barack Obama. Buchanan proved himself to be the worst doughface of all when the Supreme Court handed down the infamous Dred Scott versus Sanford decision on March 6th, within days of his taking office. Dred Scott was enslaved to an Army doctor who briefly served in the state of Illinois and Wisconsin. After the slaveholder's death, Scott sued for his freedom, claiming that his residence in those states made him a freeman. Lower courts agreed with him, and Justice Robert Greer said that the court would probably decide against Scott, but narrowly on the issue of his freedom. However, Buchanan wanted more. He would not have been satisfied with Dred Scott's continued bondage alone. He hoped that the opposition to slavery would disappear once and for all, and that white Northerners would no longer have any say in the question of slavery and its expansion. While he was still president-elect, Buchanan wrote to Justices John Catron and Robert Greer, telling the latter, quote, "The great object of my administration will be, if possible, to destroy the dangerous slavery agitation and thus to restore peace to our distracted country." Greer agreed with Buchanan and told him so in a letter. He stated that he, Justice James Wayne, and Chief Justice Roger Taney, quote, "fully appreciate and concur in your views as to the desirableness at this time of having an expression of the opinion of the court on this troublesome question. With the concurrence, I will give you in confidence the history of the case before us with the probable result," close quote. The court's decision stated that no Black person was a citizen, whether free or enslaved, and that none had any rights that a white person had to respect, including the right to bring suit in court. Buchanan had actively and unethically colluded with the federal judiciary in violation of the law. When the law became inconvenient, it was tossed aside. Buchanan got his wish in the Scott v. Sanford decision. Not only did the 7-2 result strip all Black Americans of their rights as citizens, but it also ruled that the Missouri Compromise of 1820 was unconstitutional because it gave the federal government jurisdiction over the question of slavery. The decision was not just the result of evil intent on the part of 7 of the 9 Supreme Court justices. It was an attempt to remove any legal process that could end slavery. In his attempt to kill the abolitionist movement, Buchanan only strengthened it and buoyed the endless greed of the slave owners. Buchanan won the battle in the Scott v. Sanford decision, but he emboldened the movement that would cost his pro-slavery brethren a war 8 years later. Let's move on to Reconstruction so we can get on to Abe. 1865, nearly 200,000 Black people served as United States Colored Troops, USCT, in the Civil War. Also, the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery but makes an exception for imprisonment. So they can re-enslave us, you see. Under Jim Crow, they re-enslaved us with contracts where they kept us mired in expenses so we would have to work until we dropped. And if you refused to work until you dropped, they put you in jail and leased you out as a convict to the same master you had refused to work for on the sharecropping plantations. Moving on. Let's get into Abe Lincoln. These chapters are short. Then I'll read through the comments and questions, and I'll pray us out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Abe Lincoln, 1861 to 1865. Abraham Lincoln was long credited with being the great emancipator. Isn't this Barack Obama's boy? And the anti-slavery president. He was in fact quite openly racist and often expressed the belief in keeping America a nation of, by, and for white people. Oh, the Blackboard, thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. I love y'all so much. I love y'all Black and strong. I hope you feel the love in my fight. You know, it's for y'all, y'all's kids, y'all's grandkids, great-grandkids, my daughter, all my family. This is ADOS. This is our justice claim. Don't you ever allow anyone to shame you for demanding what you are owed in the trillions over multi-generations. Sean Rochester, author of The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America, ADOS, has come up with a calculation to the tune of $70 trillion. You're owed a debt, darlings. This is not a handout. It's not charity. So be proud. Your ancestors, God bless them. They set you up for a huge victory, and the ADOS movement is not letting up. We are prepared to burn it to the ground every election cycle until the Democrats give us what we're owed. So thank you for tuning in. What's up, Nicole? Thank you, my love, for joining the live. Okay, so let's get into this because I want to pray you out and read your comments and your questions. Okay. So he was, in fact, okay, let's back up. Abraham Lincoln was long credited with being the great emancipator and the anti-slavery president. He was, in fact, quite openly racist and often expressed a belief in keeping America a nation of, by, and for white people. On December 31st, 1862, he signed an agreement with one Bernard Koch to take 435 Black so-called contrabands to Île-à-Vacher, a satellite island off the coast of Haiti. The next day, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, but the fact that he had also negotiated a colonization scheme, which he had likely intended to accompany and complement the proclamation, is largely unknown. Did y'all know that? As he was signing the Emancipation Proclamation, he was working to get you out of the country, to exile you over in Haiti. We build all the wealth that they eat from, and they want to get rid of us by tucking us away. Use up the shoes and now want to throw the shoes away. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? The more things change, the more they stay the same, family. Get this book, Prejudential. You have to read it with your children. Margaret Kimberley, Black America and the Presidents. In the name of abolitionists, in the name of your emancipation. They came up with other ways to keep you a slave and to keep you tethered to the bottom. With a few of us unicorns. I happen to be one, barely. Okay? But I'm using my voice, as are many of the educated professionals within the ADOS movement, to help the 90% of us who can't speak up and out. They don't even have, the capacity to go online like this and do shows and pay for these subscriptions and things. So it's our fight, because none of us are free until all of us are free. Back to the text. Lincoln is quintessential. Lincoln is a quintessential American hero. Much of the mythology surrounding him is worse than sympathetic exaggeration. Can you imagine worse? Lincoln lore is mostly made up of complete lies. One of his most outspoken detractors was radical abolitionist Wendell Phillips. Lincoln's continued advocacy of colonization, the forced migration of Black people out of the country, inspired Phillips to call him a first-rate, second-rate man. And they got the nerve to let the country off to celebrate his birthday. Lincoln was a consummate politician. He had to be dragged, kicking and screaming, to fight a war to end slavery, and ultimately went to war only to save the Union. Wasn't about our emancipation, like we've been miseducated to believe. That had nothing to do with it. The Republican Party was founded to prevent the spread of slavery into the Western territories, not necessarily to abolish it. Abraham Lincoln made it quite clear that he had no intention of ending slavery where it already existed. Yet his attempt to continue the compromises of the previous 100 years were not enough to keep the slaveocracy mollified. They struck first, by Lincoln's design, to attract public support for the Union as defender rather than aggressor at Fort Sumter, South Carolina in 1861. Lincoln is often remembered as the man who personally prosecuted the war and insisted on the defeat of the Confederacy. It is true that he sat by the telegraph and eagerly awaited news of battles. He did fire underperforming generals and lament when they didn't pursue the Confederates, but he would have done none of those things if the Confederates hadn't rebuffed his efforts to compensate them in exchange for their freed slaves, or if he hadn't reneged on his promise not to tamper with the institution where it existed. That bears repeating. But he would have done none of those things if the Confederates hadn't rebuffed his efforts to compensate them in exchange for their free slaves, or if he hadn't reneged on his promise not to tamper with the institution where it existed. Most important, he would never have, me speaking, you guys do know that they were paid reparations for our emancipation. White folks, our oppressors. Not us, them. Most important, he would never have finally waged a war of abolition if the enslaved themselves had not forced him to do so. Did you hear that? Most important, he would never have finally waged a war of abolition if the enslaved themselves had not forced him to do so. Never will Joe Biden or any Democrat give us the reparations we are owed in the trillions over multi-generations unless we demand it of them and force them by that vote. Do you see the correlation and the connection here? Cut down the tall trees. Green Party or blank at the top of the ticket, Democratic down ballot. You can't be more afraid than our ancestors. They took the beatings, the rapes, the lynchings. They suffered it all. 50% of the Black men who were jailed because they refused to work the sharecropping farms that oppressed us all the way to our death, 50% of them died in prison. What are you prepared to do? You've got it good, as all you got to do is disrupt this election cycle and put the government on lockdown while we continue to work. You got it easy. Back to the text. On May 23rd, 1861, 3 enslaved men, Shepard Mallory, Frank Baker, and James Townsend. Let me take a sip of water. I keep tripping on my words. My apologies, family. On May 23rd, 1861, 3 enslaved men, Shepard Mallory, Frank Baker, and James Townsend, rowed across the James River in Virginia into Union-held territory at Fort Monroe. Despite federal policy which required that they be returned to their slaveholder, General Benjamin Butler decided to keep them as contraband of war. The Lincoln administration chose not to punish Butler, and in the ensuing weeks, more runaways turned up at Fort Monroe. Within 1 month, 500 men, women, and children had taken refuge there. Our people were strong and persistent. Are you going to disappoint them by being a weak link? By being afraid to disrupt this election cycle? By being more afraid of Trump than you are your people's extinction? Or are you going to pull from the DNA that you're born in, that you were birthed in, of the ancestors? 500 sought refuge and forced our emancipation. That's the type of commitment each of us as ADOS, the lineage, need to have. Force their hand to reparations and a Black agenda in exchange for our votes. The ADOS movement is doing just that. Join us. Find a chapter near you and get involved. The Lincoln administration, jumping down. As the war dragged on, the enslaved began freeing themselves wherever Union forces appeared. While Northerners debated whether the war was being fought over slavery, the enslaved answered in the affirmative and declared that there was no turning back. Do you hear the ancestors talking to you through me? Do you hear them talking to us to cut down the tall trees? I hear them. I hear them calling on us to do what we must do. There can be no more waffling about whether the Union should maintain slavery. There can be no more waffling about whether or not this government should pay us reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. Get your life, ADOS, the lineage, and stop being afraid to demand what we are due for our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to survive this peace. It's time for the boomers and the Gen Xers that have their creature comforts to be uncomfortable and burn it to the ground. No time for waffling, the ancestors are saying. The Union could only be restored without slavery, and the North would have to defeat the South militarily to do it. Phillips made clear that if it could be said that Lincoln had grown, it was because we watered him. He was watered by Confederate intransigence and the determination of the enslaved to become free. Lincoln, we forced our freedom. We forced it. While these white devils teach you in the history that this was something Abe Lincoln granted to us. ADOS. Liars. Miseducation of the ADOS in America with 3 Ks. This is what you're made of. This is what you must do. Lincoln is remembered as a martyr in large part because he was assassinated immediately after the war ended. It is easy to see him as heroic precisely because of how he was killed. In support of the fugitive slave law, Lincoln stated, quote, "We are under a legal obligation to catch and return the runaway slaves. I confess I hate to see them hunted down and carried back to their stripes and unrequited toil. But I bite my lips and keep quiet," close quote. Ain't that about a bee? You use us for the war and then want to send us back to our oppressors under the Fugitive Slave Act. Lincoln told Phillips again responded, calling Lincoln the, quote, "slave hound of Illinois," close quote. Lincoln told Black people to their faces that they should leave the country and blame them and their presence for the Civil War. Lincoln never gave up his dream of colonization, a dream of fulfilling the settler colonial project and making America a nation for Anglo-Saxons. He established an office to promote colonization within the Interior Department and hired the Reverend James Mitchell to develop a colonization plan, naming him the U.S. Commissioner of Negro Colonization. One colony nearly came to fruition in the Chiquiri region of Panama until Central American governments protested. Mitchell wrote Lincoln the letter on the relation of the white and African races in the United States, showing the necessity of the colonization of the latter, close quote. Mitchell didn't mince words, encouraging the president on the first of 28 pages to, quote, "produce the separation of those races, the removal of the colored race to a proper locality and establishment in independence there. Get rid of us. Use us up. And then find another way to enslave us through sharecropping contracts to make us work until our demise, putting us in so much debt we can never work the debt off." On August 14, 1862, Lincoln met with a group of 5 black pastors selected by Mitchell and told them that he wanted them and their people out of the country. Quote, "But for your race among us, there could not be war. Although many men engaged on either side do not care for you one way or the other. Nevertheless, I repeat, without the institution of slavery and the colored race as a basis, the war could not have an existence. This determination to carry," close quote, "this determination to carry out a plan of ethnic cleansing had very dangerous repercussions for black people who lived a precarious existence, whether or not they were enslaved or free. At the time of Lincoln's meeting with the intelligent colored men, a wave of violence was falling upon black communities around the country. Is that not true? Hasn't that been going on? Let's not pretend like this is just happening under Trump's administration. Let's not pretend that Trump is the first racist to take office, Biden. They're all racist. I shared in my feed the women in the 50s asking the police to stop killing us. We're at George Floyd, 8 minutes, 46 seconds to the neck, etc., and so on and so forth. It's time to grow a backbone and cut down the tall trees with your vote. It's time for the revolution. It is being social mediaized. It is time to socialize our suffering. You let these Democrats get the top of the ticket in Congress, woe be unto the ADOS. We will be the only ones suffering while the other groups take away the spoils and forget any of this ever happened. They are protesting Black Lives Matter because everybody's suffering under Trump. Let's keep that same energy, family, this election cycle and onward and so forth until they cut the check in the trillions over multi-generations. This determination to carry out a plan of ethnic cleansing. Okay, I did that part. Okay, I'm jumping down. On August 6, 1862, the New York Tribune reported that violence commenced weeks ago in Cincinnati, Evansville, Indiana, and Toledo. In Brooklyn, a mob attacked black workers at a tobacco factory and attempted to burn it down with the workers inside. Lincoln was nothing if not consistent. After his meeting with black leaders after violent attacks on black people, he continued to link emancipation to colonization. On September 23, 1862, he met with his cabinet to discuss a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation and made clear his determination to send black people out of the country. Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles reported on the meeting, quote, "This was a part of the president's scheme and had occupied his mind sometime before the project for emancipation was adopted, although the historians, biographers, and commentators have made slight, if any, allusion to it. The president, however, and a portion of his cabinet considered them inseparable, and that deportation should accompany and be part of the emancipation movement." Not only was emancipation, I'm in the final stretch, family, bear with. I know it's a little ear fatigue. Just thank you for wanting to learn more. Just bear with me, I'm almost there. Not only was emancipation tied to colonization, but so was compensation to the slave holders, which Lincoln proposed in his congressional address of December 1st, 1862, while giving them until January 1, 1900 to complete the process of emancipation. So pay the slave holders, not the slaves, upon emancipation. Pull the Union troops out of the South and give us sharecropping and debtor's prison and convict leasing. The new enslavement. They lost $20 trillion from the emancipation, and through convict leasing and sharecropping, gained $15 trillion of it back. So dedicated are historians to whitewashing history that they lie about evidence that is quite easy to find. Benjamin Butler's account of being asked to develop yet another colonization plan just days before Lincoln's assassination is continually called into question. after questioning whether Lincoln was the, quote, great emancipator, end quote, is rebuffed. He may have said in his second inaugural address in March 1865, quote, if God wills that the Civil War continue until all the wealth piled on the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, close quote. But it was the insistence of the slaves and former slaves themselves, of radical abolitionists and of intransigent Confederates that forced him to utter such words shortly before he died. It is imperative that we debunk the myth that Lincoln acted initially out of a motivation to help Black people. Spreading and continuing these falsehoods makes the study of history a sham and keeps Americans uninformed about their past and present. You hear the nonsense. They're miseducating us and our children, to whitewash the history, to make them appear to be heroes, when they are and have always been our oppressors, Democrats, Demorats, and Republicans alike. Your people insisted on our freedom. Our people freed us. Go run tell that. We owe it to them to fight for the reparations that their lives paid for us to be American. They died for the right to vote for us to be American, not to put our intellect in the trunk and continue this lesser two evil two-step shuffle to our own peril. That's not why they died. They were some of the most courageous people in all the born world. And that's why they're trying to extinct us, because that is what we're made of. Let's get to some of the comments. Thank you, family, for hanging in there with me. We have to learn it. There's so much to unlearn and to newly learn. And God told me to do this over going into the ministry. This is my ministry. ADOS movement is my ministry. My people are my ministry. Grew up with a Black Panther forefather. My people are my ministry. I welcome all of you to the live. I'm just jumping down to see if there's anything that I want to highlight. Oh, a Melanated Integrity says, Set It Off is a very true depiction of us with a classic soundtrack as well. You got that right. That soundtrack is fire. Denial. Yeah. A lot of ADOS in denial because they put these celebrities. Shout out to Chris Rock, who has been giving them that work. Democrats and Republicans alike. Look up his most recent articles. He is far better than some of these other celebrities who are just talking out the side of their neck without any education, trying to stay relevant, trying to keep their coin, while talking about how ADOS don't really need one, and caping all the while for Jim Crow segregationist Joe and Cali's top cop, Skamala the Chameleon. So shout out to Chris Rock for keeping it a buck. I see you, Brooklyn. Minimum wage should be $33 an hour to match inflation from 1970 to now. Yeah. And they're acting as if $15 an hour is going to help anyone in this country. I don't know where you could live that $15 an hour can stretch. They've gentrified everything. And so everything, the cost of living goes up with white folks' salary. If they're sharing 100 trillion household dollars to your less than 700 billion since COVID, where you going to make $15 an hour a job work? $15 an hour in 2020. I was making $20 an hour at General Motors at the age of 15 in their insurance and benefits division. You got white high school dropouts with more social capital, able to get work over educated ADOS. We have, I'm at hour 05. Okay, let me hurry. We have over earned an elevated money class status. That's a little, we have over earned an elevated class status. Yes, we have. And what our chattel slave labor is valued at today? Woo-wee. We not just talk about the US, Europe and Africa. We coming for you. Wait for it. Spain. I just recently learned y'all enslaved us here as early as the 600s. We coming for you. Reparations are essential. How else do you close a $100 trillion racial wealth gap? Melanated integrity, you're right. Teresa Moses, and our tax dollars take care of them. Absolutely correct. The immigrants, we are their reparations. As they continue to gain a pathway to citizenship before this country makes us American. Been here since 600, I recently learned. Mercedes Boy One corporate's been a sham. Government, that last safe ADOS stronghold for employment. It's not even that for us anymore, Mercedes Boy One. No. Public sector down here, immigrants run it. I'll bring up those numbers tomorrow. I think my next show is Sunday night. I'll bring you those numbers. We're not winning in the private sector. We're doing better. I mean, in the public sector, we're doing better than the private. But comparatively, we're finished in the private sector too. The public sector too. Gerrymandering is locking Democratic seats out. Slay the Dragon on Hulu. Okay. Well, we got to pray. Hold a seance. I don't know, but we got to deliver a Democratic Congress. There's no other way. We got to help our people. So we need every ADOS at the polls in Obama style numbers. Vote Green Party, top of the ticket, or leave it blank so your vote doesn't get thrown out. I am sweating. So your vote doesn't get thrown out, family. If you write an ADOS, you run that risk. And so I know you want to be fancy and do that, but you're not serving the 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism if you run the risk of your vote being thrown out. We need all the votes to count. Spread the word. The Blackboard. Thanks, Angela. Thank you thank you so much, my love. Hey, Angela, keep speaking truth, enjoying the education. Thank you, my love. Oh, take your time. I just love y'all so much. Universal Mike Michelson, thank you. That's smoke. The Blackboard says, Joe Biden will not be president. We must work with Trump, who is the next and last president of the U.S. I appreciate Yvette, but we should work with whomever is in charge, like all the other groups. I have to concur. Wait for it, Blackboard. I can't say much. You are brilliant, sis. Oh, aren't we all? Mike Michelson, I see you posting some spiritual stuff too. That's right up my alley. We got to talk, brother. We really do. You quoting Eckhart Tolle, I think. Who else did I see up there? Oh, I was properly impressed. Those are people I rock with. Yeah. We got to talk offline. The Blackboard. The Blackboard says, I started walking the earth in 65. So I don't know if I'm a boomer or whatever follows, but I'm with you all the way with Jesus Christ as our sword and shield. Amen to that. Blackboard, I'm a 66 baby. You're a boomer. Barely. You might. No, I border boomer Gen Xer. I think you are a boomer, my love. You are 65. You're a boomer, but you overstand. We got some very woke boomers, very woke Gen Xers that's helping our millennial babies. It's helping our Gen Zs, okay? I love y'all being in this fight with me. Nicole says, all these lying and conniving presidents, this country was built unethical. In God we trust, the devil is a lie. Reparations now. We running out of time. The fight is now. Yes, yes, sis. Blackboard, bring it. Love knowledge, especially about us. Amen. And I love imparting it to us. Woo. It just thrills me to use my voice in this way. I'm just so grateful that God chose me. I resisted it for a long time, though. Ooh, child. I just thought, oh, let me just be a credit to the race. I won't have to do this fight. Because you know, family, the movement takes catnaps, right? I am on call after call after call after call. Okay, y'all just get this little snippet, but the movement is busy all over the country, fixing on HR 40, getting this protest vote out here. It's a lot going on behind the scenes that you guys know not of. But getting this fight so you can help us. We need y'all to make dials and the whole like universal mic, the love, the fire. Yes, fam. Mark, thank you for joining the live, Mark Cummings. Sister, your passion speaks volumes. Are you originally from Detroit? I'm a Dayton, Ohio girl. Brother, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm a Dayton, Ohio girl, my brother. Midwest, baby. I am the daughter of an original Ohio player. Okay? Yes, I am. He didn't raise me. I give all the credit to my stepdaddy. He went off to do his thing as percussionist for the group. And I'm very grateful to have been able to see him in concert after concert, you know, after I learned who he was, not into my 20s. You know, that's a whole nother Oprah. You know, my brother was playing for Zapp featuring Roger Troutman and made a best friend, who knew, in the sound studio. I think it was Roger Troutman's Computer Love album. And my father and he met and became best friends. Unbeknownst to him, that was me and his twin sister and his biological father. Oh, Lord. Ooh, child, y'all know we can keep some secrets, can't we? But I'm so grateful to have gotten to know him because I, too, am an artist, as is my brother, a gifted musician, as is my sister, a gifted fashion designer. And so to see him in action, you know, he's sickly now. He doesn't tour with them anymore. But to see him in action, I understood my love of music. I understood my love of the theater. I understood my brother's natural inherent gifts as a musician. My brother's got a couple of albums out. As a matter of fact, that's his music that you're hearing at the top of the show. Look him up on CD Baby at Robert Sanae. He is cold to the bone, Sanae, cold to the bone. He allowed me to use that soundtrack as my theme music for my Friends of ADOS TV show. Shout out to my brother. I love you so much, and I thank you so much for this incredible music you put out. You're just a musical genius. You know how I feel about you. Dayton, Ohio, that's why you're so pretty. Oh, someone the water out there. Oh, bless you. Thank you, Blackboard. Oh, you know what? Something about them Ohio women. I think Halle Berry's from Ohio. Back in my earlier, younger wonder years, they used to call me Jane Kennedy. What a compliment. Was she not gorgeous? Okay. And then, of course, I used to get Janet Jackson, you know, when I had her abs and my big old afro puff on the top looking like Penny. Thank you. Yeah, Ohio has got some amazing, beautiful women inside and out. You know, we don't just focus on the exterior. My mama taught me, honey, looks fade. You want somebody that can be by your side, that appreciates your beauty from within you. That's what you focus on. Get out the mirror, okay? So I appreciate every compliment, and I'm humbled by it. Thank you so much. Okay, Taj Marie, Pennsylvania just threw the Green Party off the ballot, so there will be no choice but to vote down ballot. Oh, no, we're voting down ballot. Let me be clear. Democratic down ballot is a must. If the Green Party is not in your city, in your state, then leave it blank or at least know your Board of Election laws. No, no, no. Democratic down ballot is a must. We're not divorcing from that at all. We must deliver a Democratic Congress for the 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by the design of institutional systemic racism, okay? So please, 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 this is not in lieu of Yvette and Tone's strategy. I'm just trying to give you guys some insight that there are never states where you can never write in or they throw the whole thing out. Know what that is for your state. I'm advising to stay away from ADOS write-in. We can't take any chances. The stakes are extremely high. Either write in if you have Green Party available to you, Hallie Hawkins for president and Angela Walker for VP. She is an ADOS, okay? Truck driver, single mom. And she is in touch with the movement and wants our assistance to get them to at least 5% so they can be on every ballot the next election cycle. Oh, yeah. So they're running reparations on their platform at gp.org. We are really hopeful to become a force to be reckoned with because from what I understand, and Cobra or NARC, one of those two, has put it on lock, and it's on the ADOS movement to seize it back as a potential third party, a prospective third party for the ADOS movement. Okay, we have to vet them. That's down the road. Right now, this is a protest vote that we're calling for, and the way we protect the vote is to write in Green Party candidates or anyone other than Biden and Kamala, anyone other than them, but they have to be on the ballot, okay? And I'm asking for Green Party at the top of the ticket or blank. If you write an ADOS, you run the risk of your ballot being thrown out, even if you're in a write-in state. They're up to so many games to deny us the right to vote. We don't want to be the suppressors of our own vote. Keep that in mind, family. Okay. Okay. Mark, my girl Onita Jackson is from Dayton. I'm going to send you a signed copy of her book, Happy-Headed Negro Syndrome. Inbox me an address. I sure will. Thank you so much for that. I love the beginning music. Oh, that's my brother, darling. He is fire. Look him up, Robert Sine. Mm-hmm. Okay, I meant something. Okay, baby, I feel you. I hope I read it right. Nicole, all my immediate family migrated from Tennessee to Dayton. Girl, we probably family, Nicole. My people migrated from Tennessee and Kentucky. Who you, girl? You better inbox me. You might be my cousin. Mm-hmm. All my immediate family migrated from Tennessee to Dayton. I'm in Dayton every year. Dean Cartwright family reunion. Girl, I am Brame, B-R-A-M-E, Tyler. Child, inbox me. We might be kin. And Jerio Cameron, thank you so much for joining the live. Watching from Jacksonville, Arkansas, sending you love, Queen. Oh, I love you, Black and Strong. Nicole, and at the Macy's Music Festival. Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Okay, we might be family, my love. We really might be. Okay, family, that's my time. I'm at an hour 19. Y'all know I was born to talk. I can't thank y'all enough for rolling with this, sister. I want you guys to help make this go viral. I really do. We need all hands on deck. This is the part where everybody gets to be in the movement, okay? Thank you for your love, your kindness, your patience. You know, prior to finding my tribe, I felt like a voice in the wind. You guys are the wind beneath my wings. You keep me reading, you keep me studying, you keep me researching, you keep me on my toes. And I thank you for being my inspiration and why I fight. I don't have enough gratitude. I don't have enough words to express my gratitude for each of you and the way you love me and the way you support me through the things I post and through my shows. I can't thank you enough. It means the world to me. And with that said, family, I'm going to pray us out, put that covering over us so I can get you out of here. It's gone over more than I had intended. If you don't want a covering and you don't believe in prayer, that's fine. I love you black and strong even still because I know who you are. You are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the spirit of the living God. So you can choose to go, but I know who you are. So I'm good. With the rest of us, I want to tell you that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, because I'm going to repeat it. You, family, are the real face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Yes, you are. So until Sunday, family, we'll be going over the next two presidents. Get your books, family. You know I love to read to you, but you need to have this in your library. The next is the despicable, deplorable Andrew Johnson, Democrat, who stuck the shiv in us and turned it and gutted us worse than pigs. And Ulysses S. Grant, Sunday, 6 o'clock, same time, same bat station. Until then, family, you go out in these streets and act like you know who you are. And you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and weekend until Sunday, family. If I don't pop up and do an emergency show. I love you black. I love you strong. Ciao, family. Peace.